Volkswagen have just partnered with Chinese company XPeng to produce more EVs because they need a bit of help. Audi is of course owned by Volkswagen. Volkswagen is a huge company. They own, Audi, Seat, Bentley, all Lamborghini, all sorts of big companies. Volkswagen is massive. So, following Audi's collaboration with SAIC, the company from China, the state-owned company, to adopt an EV platform, Volkswagen is teaming up with XPeng. This is really, really interesting for a couple of reasons. I'll get into that in a minute. To keep pace with the electric vehicle transition that's happening, because it's rocketing all over the world, pretty much everywhere. And year on year, the sort of numbers that we're seeing in sales is often double the year before, and even triple in some cases, and that is huge. Often when industries move toward change, they move much, much slower. As you all know, as you predict, this is crippling even to the biggest brands like Volkswagen. This is just a huge change. They can't keep up. And these companies have billions of dollars to play with. Welcome back, everyone. Today is the 25th of August, and it has been a beautiful day here in Brisbane all day because it's still winter. And I'm a bit late posting because today I spent half of the day repairing a coffee machine because I live a rock and roll lifestyle, of course. Thank you very much to everyone that supports me on Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, YouTube memberships. As I always say, they're about $3 each roughly, and the link will be below if you wanted to help. If you're new here, I'm Ben Alexander, and I make videos every single day about EV news from all over the world. So recently, there were some leaked pictures of the ID.7 from Volkswagen, and I'm one of the people that likes a wagon. I think they're great, and my God, is this stunning as a wagon. And to be completely fair, it also looks great as a sedan too. I'm not too convinced about the logo and the grille on the front, but the rest of it, especially the side, wow, beautiful. There are a couple of things that, for me, makes this a great EV, so I'm going to let you know what they are. I'm generally keen to know what the people who watch my videos think about these and Volkswagens, The people that watch my videos usually enjoy talking about Chinese EVs, I guess, largely, but I do try to talk about lots of other brands too, like GM and Toyota and whatever. I'm genuinely interested to know, so if you put in the comments, let me know if you're not interested, if you are interested. You will be able to get the ID.7 with different specs. The sedan and the wagon will both have the option of a single motor at the rear with 282 horsepower, or a dual motor option, but the power hasn't been confirmed yet for the dual motor version. It will have the option for two battery sizes, 77 kilowatt hours or 89 kilowatt hours, both awesome, really just great. I'm fairly sure it's going to feel amazing to drive. Volkswagens always feel fantastic to drive, but if it's electric and rear-wheel drive and it's got a big range and it's got just an all-right amount of power, 280 horsepower, then that's just fantastic. I mean, that kind of was made for me. That's a great car. So when the ID.7 comes out, it's predicted to start at about $61,000 US, which is a lot, but still a reasonable price for it, I think. Although I think it could still be cheaper. I know that Volkswagen often overprice their cars a little bit. There are a couple of things to consider, so we'll get into that in a second. I don't understand what makes them even try to say, though, that it has, and this is, I'm afraid, laughable, 435 miles of range, because it simply will not do 435 miles. I mean, potentially, if you drive 40 miles per hour with no wind on a, around a test circle, maybe, but that's about it. And obviously, Volkswagen have a stellar past for being completely genuine and upfront. Don't they? The new EVs made between Volkswagen and XPeng will be mid-size models, China-specific, and there's a couple of cars they're going to make together. So it's this like big collaboration between XPeng, this new Chinese company, and Volkswagen. That's what's going on here. So they will be made to be sold in China. the cars made between these two companies. Obviously, the ID.7 in other countries will be made locally. This deal will be aimed at supplementing Volkswagen's MEB product lineup. They are expected to be introduced in early 2026, and it's a common thing that we're seeing here where Legacy Auto turns to China for help because they're just not spending the money. They were not quick enough off the mark, and they're not pulling their finger out, really. Toyota with BYD electronics is a great example of this. Toyota pay BYD for their motor, controller, batteries, for example. So if you're in Europe or other parts of the world, if you go buy the Volkswagen ID.7, that will be made local to you, most likely, wherever you are. I don't know. The China versions will just be made by China and sold in China. That's how it's going to work. So someone posted a great comment the other day about BYD products. BYD apparently even make, for example, just one of their products, iPads for Apple. Apparently, I didn't know this. And then Apple brands them as their own. I know that doesn't sound surprising these days. Companies do this all the time. I use a Xiaomi smart phone, and the camera inside it is a Samsung camera. You know, that sort of thing is pretty standard practice to use designs or electronics or cameras and chips, you know, from different places, as well as other electronics. You know, originally BYD started as an electronics company in I think it was 2002 or something. I can't remember the exact year now, and then moved into vehicles after a good handful of years. I think it was like 6 or 7 years or something. As part of the partnership, Volkswagen plans to invest around $700 million in XPeng. That's the deal they've agreed. We're going to give you $700 million, and that secures a 4.99% stake and an observer seat on XPeng's board. So basically, when they have board meetings, big meetings, Volkswagen can go and sit but not partake in those meetings. One thing that is strange about this is that XPeng only started business 8 years ago, or 9 years ago even. So that's not a long time, is it? I don't think. And they've already managed to lock in a $700 million deal with a company like Volkswagen. And yet a lot of people in the UK and Australia don't even know XPeng exists. And they've only sold 120,000 vehicles last year. So it's not really a big deal compared to things like BYD, 1.8 million cars last year, Tesla, 1.2 million cars last year. So you can see what Volkswagen are doing. I think it's very, very clever. I won't say what it is. I'll leave that to your interpretation, but I think it's quite clear. In the last year or two, it's easy to see why Volkswagen have also struggled to shift their EVs, often just discounting things down really, really cheaply, especially in China. They're simply just too expensive and people aren't buying them. There's a cost of living crisis, housing crisis going on in many places around the world, and they're still asking huge money for their cars. So it's not competitive enough. You can go and get a BYD for a reasonable amount of money, considerably cheaper than a Volkswagen. Even if it's just $5,000 on, if you were to price up the Volkswagen and the BYD that you wanted, it's still $5,000, whatever way you look at it. That's a lot of money. So Volkswagens over the last decade as well have had a terrible habit of having electrical issues. So it's a concern, and I know it's commonly written in the reviews and comments under Volkswagen review videos on YouTube, and also when you go on websites where there's a star rating and owner reviews. Quite bad, and as a common thread where electronics are going wrong in Volkswagens, people definitely have noted this. But they are fantastic cars, and I hope the new Volkswagen and new Volvos that are electric work better for much longer. Otherwise, what's the point, I think, in even selling cars if they become worthless within, the wrong side of 10 years? I think we should be wanting to get cars that are like the Honda Jazz or the Honda Fit if you're in the US. They're still wanted by lots of people, even when they're 20 years old. And I think that should be a sort of benchmark, in my opinion. There are lots of Fiat 500s, for sale on Marketplace, for example, that are worthless with loads of issues, falling to pieces with less than 100,000 miles on. And I think it's kind of worth paying a little bit more for a better made car and getting twice the life out of it. But I know there are lots of variables at play here, I know. And I think people don't always just want boring, reliable cars. They want quirky and different brands, and they obviously don't always prioritize reliability. Reliability can sometimes be a bit tedious. I think some people kind of want to have a car that challenges them a little bit in some way, as much as that sounds ridiculous. My question to you is, what range do you think the Volkswagen ID.7 will actually get on a full charge with the 89 kilowatt hour battery at best, real world, wherever you are? If you enjoyed the video, then please click the like button for me so that YouTube know that people are enjoying it, and subscribe for more daily videos about electric vehicles.